Welcome back everyone to the Fantasy Network. I am the BookTube Beefcake, Jimmy Nuts, and today we are going to be reviewing Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb as we continue our quest through the realm of the Elderlings. This is the first book in the Liveship Traders Trilogy that comes right after Farseer, a few years in the future, but it is a totally different story than what we got in Farseer, and that makes it not only just a great second entry, but very, very special. And I'm actually rocking the UK covers. I'm ordering these from Book Depository because I think I want all 16 of these to be uniform, and I really, really enjoy just kind of how simple and a little bit classy these editions are. And to give you a little idea of what we're talking about Liveship and it being kind of in the same world as Farseer, and in this realm of the Elderlings, but in a different geographical location. I think the synopsis, it does a very good job. I was already going to read it, but it hooked me even more. Wizard wood, the most precious commodity in the world, comes only from the rain wilds. But only a live ship can negotiate perilous waters of the Rainwild River, and live ships are hard to come by. They quicken only when 3 family members from successive generations have died upon their deck. The live ship Vivicea is about to undergo her quickening. Althea Vestrit awaits for the ship that she loves more than anything in the world to awaken. But her dream of taking her father's place at Vivicea's helm is not to be, for her family have other plans. And the dark, charming pirate Kennett also lusts after such a ship. He well knows the power of wizardwood and has plans of his own. So that kind of sets the stage right there that there's going to be a lot of things go wrong for people in their expectations of what they're about to get, from this world and from the plot. And also introduces you immediately to 2 characters that give them their motivations. Great synopsis, really got me immediately into it. Now with Ship of Magic here being the first entry, I have to be honest with you, I am not a fan of nautical, naval fantasy at all. It has never been for me. For instance, I don't like any of the Pirates of the Caribbean films. It's not that they're bad films, it's just not the setting that I prefer. Even the Greyjoys in A Song of Ice and Fire are like my least favorite of the bunch. Maybe Euron, he's kind of cool, but overall, naval things are a tough sell for me. And you're taking me away from my beloved Fifth Chivalry and all the cast from Farseer. So Robin Hobb had a tall order to fill and had a lot to overcome for me to enjoy it as much as Farseer. But I am happy to say that Ship of Magic has put away all my biases against naval fantasy because I became very, very intrigued by this world. And I never even really noticed that we're at sea and those type of things. And really, Ship of Magic doesn't have a ton of on-boat scenes. I mean, it does, but it takes a while to get there. That is one of the main criticisms I see of Ship of Magic, is that it's a slow start. I don't necessarily mind a slow start, but I will say that the first, I think it's 300 to 400 pages of this book happen over about 2 days. And that, to me, was a little bit slow. Not in a terrible way, because remember, we came a long way in the Farseer trilogy, and we trust Robin Hobb to give us good payoffs, good character development, all that stuff, right? When you end a trilogy and then jump back into a new one, you have to start all over. You have a whole new cast of characters, and it's from the third-person perspective, so we're getting grounds in the way Robin Hobb writes that as well. So it does take some time to get going, but that's just us as readers saying, well, look how far we came with Fitz and then that crew. We kind of want that immediately when we start the next trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings, but that's not what you're going to get. And for good reason, because a lot of this groundwork that we lay in those first 2 days will end up paying off or having points brought back to them all the way into book 3. One thing that I immediately noticed about Ship of Magic is that we are in a different perspective. We're in a third-person perspective, which is a lot more common in modern fantasy, whereas Farseer is in first person. I was so impressed by how seamless it felt that Robin Hobb switched to the third-person perspective and really just felt natural and smooth. It also felt like with the main characters, we jumped around and we would see POVs from people that we might not even think that we get in the head of, and I really, really liked that about Hobb's approach. And I think it was about chapter 7 or 184 pages in, I was pretty much sold on the characters at that point and the cast of crew, and you feel like this is very character-dominated, which is why I like reading Robin Hobb and why I love Farseer so much. And it does feel like we are going to be getting more of an overarching plot that kind of unlayers like an onion as we go through. Is kind of what I assumed reading this for the first time in book 1, which is a lot like Farseer. But the plot inherently from the get-go feels a bit more epic, I think, in this trilogy. And I really like the way that it's introduced here in Ship of Magic. And I know some people, when I say, oh, it's a slow start, they might like roll their eyes, or maybe they cross this off the TBR or something like that. So please don't do that, because I think a lot of the scene setting that happens in these first 200 to 300, 400 pages, and a lot of these like introduction for these character moments and these families and these traders, it's like integral, and it's also one of the reasons why Robin Hobb is so special, because she does take the time to do those things, and she's still moving you along. It's just, putting the attention on different things. So please don't, when you hear me say slow start earlier, I don't want that to sound like it's boring, because it's anything but. And one of the cool things about the way she opens up this series is that it's very evident, even from the synopsis, right, that we have our character motivations up front, but they can also be interpreted different ways, right? Like, when you first meet Kenneth, or even some of the other not so lovable characters, you can understand their motivations, even though they're going about it all the wrong way. Some of the motivations of these characters that I disliked were sound motivations. It's just, it's in their character about how they address it and how they treat people around them to obtain their goals. That becomes an issue. So it's cool to see motivations that aren't always inherently evil, but just taken from an evil perspective. And I just want to say that if you love hating characters, my God, does Ship of Magic introduce you to two of the most hateable, detestable bastards I've ever met, and that's Kenneth and Kyle. And I'll be honest, I think here in book 1, I hate Kyle even more than Kenneth. I'm sure that'll change down the road. In fact, I know it will. But Kyle is just so hateable, and he has such a strong sense of sexism that's also kind of embodied through the culture of where he comes from, which is, I think it's called Chalced. I always say it wrong, but he's Chalcidian, and you can tell where he comes from. There is a strong culture of sexism, and it's addressed here directly in book 1 through a lot of his, unfavorable actions. There's a great moment of characterization for Kyle where he's having breakfast with Kefria, and this is not really spoilery. It's just a scene that happens. It doesn't give away anything, but he's having breakfast, and he has her. Basically, he could fill his own tea, but he decides to have her do it instead, and it's just him imposing his will and making sure, as she's having a conversation, she just wants to see him before he sails off. That's all she wants. And, I mean, who wouldn't want that if you were married to someone, because they are married? And instead of using that as a time to sink a deeper connection or, give promises of a brighter future, I'll be home soon, something, he uses it as a way to make sure that she is still in check, and that she, as the head of her family, being the trader at this point, is at his beck and call, and that he runs this family. And he affirms that by just doing little things like that, where it's completely within his power to refill his tea, but he makes sure that she does it so she knows her place. And it just really makes him a disgusting person. And it's like a story that you can get grounded in immediately with your emotions. Everything feels alive in this world. Even, the ships are alive, right? The live ships. But also the serpents are around. While these serpent chapters are probably the most mysterious and intriguing, I've tried to figure out what the hell's going on with them. I did find those to be a little less engaging because I had no idea what was going on, and they're talking animals, which I'm not mega huge on. So I think they'll pay off later, clearly, and it's going to have a bigger impact on the world, but they're a little hard to focus on. But if you're going to read this book, just get through it, pay attention. Sometimes I had to read them twice just to figure out who was who and what was going on, because there's a lot of lingo thrown at you, and you're kind of just thrown in the deep waters. See what I did there? Deep waters, serpents. And as much as I hate Kyle, I love his son Wintrow here in this first book. I think Wintrow's struggle with what he wants, and him being somebody that basically wants to be a monk, right? He's gonna kind of like a priest growing up in a cathedral. He's battling this internal conflict of being loyal to his family while also being extraordinarily religious, and religion for him is winning out mostly. But to see just the expectations that are brought upon him because of society, and where they grew up at, and what a son's expected to do, and how Kyle treats him is just pretty relatable. I think that a lot of people go through similar things, even in their own family a lot of the times, and I think it's something a lot of people can attach to. I think Wintrow's struggle here in book 1 is probably the brightest point to me, and Wintrow is my favorite character in Ship of Magic. And in a close second place, I mean, there's quite a few actually. I wouldn't say he's second place, but watching this antagonist, Kenneth, build his legend from the very get-go is enthralling. People told me when I got into this trilogy that Kenneth was going to be a character that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And just based on book 1, I think there's still a lot of work to do, but Kenneth has a resounding effect on the narrative, and also just has a presence through the page that I can feel. And I'm really excited to see where this goes and how this legend builds and what scope is put on him. Is he going to be made out to be a hero or something? Because he seems pretty dastardly. And the thing about Kenneth is, and I won't harp on this too much because I want to talk about it more in book 2 and 3 reviews, but Kenneth is not your everyday sociopath, and he is. It seems to be a sociopath from what I can tell. It's interesting because he's not necessarily surrounded by a bunch of evil people. It's not a group of bad guys, right? Like a gang of baddies trying to get after treasure and stuff. No, he's surrounded by like very good people who are loyal, people who want to believe in him, people who need a purpose, people who have lost their way. A lot of people down on their luck are around him. And I think that that's pretty much on purpose because he can control them. Kind of similar to what we talked about with Kyle earlier, but to a much more extreme extent because he's reaching way beyond his family here and ruining other people's lives. But he is an evil, evil guy who is surrounded by a lot of good people. And we don't see that very often. And I think that's an interesting take on the idea of an antagonist and a sociopath. And through all this, just like what I've said so far, which is very spoiler-free, you can feel the pot churning. You can feel the plot thickening, right? And it just feels like there's a vast cast of characters here, like a lot is going on. It is pretty subtle, and I think it's all grounded in reality, but how our characters react for each step along this intro of a journey is just really addicting. I think maybe even more so than Farseer, Liveships kind of reminds me of First Law in the sense that like you get your footing with these characters and then the plot starts to move along. And I just keep seeing a lot of parallels between First Law and Realm of the Elderlings. And I know that's probably a really odd comparison for a lot of people. I've mentioned it on my live streams, Chatting with Nuts, that I have here on the channel when I do live discussions. But I just see so much of what Abercrombie probably pulled from Hobb. And while they're written completely different and they have kind of an eerily similar tone in their bleakness, there are things that just kind of, oh yeah, that reminds me of Blade itself, right? Of a first entry where it's really character driven and the plot's going to get thickened and developed a little bit later, which I'll be honest, I think that's something that I lean into and I like. And because the plot is a little bit mysterious and because we're with these characters, everything feels like really unpredictable in this book one. Like I felt very uneasy, I guess would be the word to describe this. Is like I didn't have a great idea where we were going. I kind of had an idea maybe some of the ending beats of the story like as they were unfolding, but not like chapters and chapters ahead of time, right? And because of that, it's not like an oh my god everyone's dying type of unpredictable either. It's just like subtle things like you don't know where the fork in the road is going to go, and because of that it ends up you almost can imagine it going like three different ways, which makes it really fun to postulate like where a character would have ended up if another character hadn't made such a minute decision. And there's just all those little tiny decisions that add up into these trees. And Hobb keeps her story very unpredictable that way. And that's kind of it. I'm going to keep it a little bit brief because I could go on and on and on. I just want to say I feel like the ending of this book was excellent. And it like set the scene for book 2 so well where I had to dive right in. Very addicting, like I said. And the best part about Robin Hobb's writing, from Farseer now into Liveship, the Ship of Magic, Book 1, I just want to discuss it. I want to talk about it with people and see where they think that it's going as I read it, which I've been able to talk to some people who are reading it kind of along with me, not like purposely with me, but just so happen to be reading it. And it's so much fun to talk about. I think this is one of the most discussion-driven series that I've ever read, and I wish more people were getting on it. So if you haven't read Ship of Magic, I'm telling you, I know some people start with a little bit of a slower start with the setting up of the story, but the payoff at the end of book 1 is just awesome. I loved it, and it gets you even more attached to these characters, which is kind of crazy. And you can tell already here in book 1 that things will never be the same for any of these people. And I'm excited to see how paths cross. Some already do, but I'm excited to see what's the result of the ones we've seen already, and then how they're all going to come together, probably in book 3, but maybe also in book 2. And I have just so many thoughts. This is definitely going to be, when I finish this trilogy, reviews and all this stuff, I'm definitely going to be sitting down and doing a spoiler discussion with somebody, probably Jake Bishop, because he really enjoyed the series and I really liked what he had to say about it. So we'll probably do some sort of spoiler discussion, which is just going to be filled. That'll probably be a 3-hour live stream, so you got to check that when I do it. But Ship of Magic is an incredible entry into the realm of the Elderlings and a beautiful book 1 for the Liveship Trader Trilogy. Did I like it more than Assassin's Apprentice? I'm going to say probably about equal. And I know a lot of people are like, meh. But here's the thing. I think that the plot is being set up to be a little bit more intriguing in what happened in Farseer, but the cast of characters are neck and neck. Because you have to remember that all the Farseer characters that we love so much, Chade, Burich, and and Ketrican and everyone, Patience. Those were all set up through a first-person perspective, which is not something you see. You don't see like crazy great development of the side characters in a book when it's from a first-person perspective. So that is an accomplishment. But Hobb was able to jump in the third-person perspective here and blow me away with her character development and overall just how the story flowed. It felt very natural. It felt like a little bit old school, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it just felt like when authors used to take their time a little bit more and really take care of like the little things and the nuances in the story. And I think that's something that Robin Hobb has excelled at so far in both of these series, and it is one that sets up book 2 beautifully here with Ship of Magic. So if you like this, make sure to hit like and subscribe. We're going to be reviewing book 2. I'll probably have that out in the next week or so. And this is just a great time to be in the realm of Elderlings. If you are reading along with me, let me know what you think of the series down below. Keep the spoilers out of it if you can. I have a lot of thoughts and ideas, and I'm going to share. I've been recording theories as I go and as I read through these books, and I'm going to share those on my live stream when I do the spoiler discussion of what I thought was going to happen and then what actually did happen, which is part of the fun of Realm of the Elderlings so far for me. It's one of the best series for crafting theories, in my opinion. So, yeah, check it out. If you've not read this, I really encourage you, go get through Farseer and come to Liveship, and don't skip Liveship. I can't believe some people, throw in the towel and just go to the next Fitz books, because you can tell even this book 1 that we're laying a foundation that's going to tie in later with Fitz, and it's very subtle, I think, but it's going to be amazing when it all does come together. And also, this is just a great story. This is, an A-tier book 1 for me. And I bet you book 2 and 3 are also going to exceed my expectations. So I look forward to that. Yes, so if you want to see more Realm of the Elderlings content, make sure to hit subscribe, turn on the bell for notifications. And I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me rant and rave. We're all about Robin Hobb here on the Fantasy Network, and I'm going to be reading through all Realm of the Elderlings this year, which is really exciting. So again, thank you so much for your time. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. And until our next time, remember to always keep turning the page.